Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Wednesday, September 20th, 2017, and you're tuned in to episode 334 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news at our hands, so let's jump right into it. Our top story of the day is the big ruling out of Massachusetts' highest court, finding that the roadside tests given by police to drivers suspected of operating under the influence of alcohol could not be used to similarly gauge a driver's level of marijuana impairment. The court found that while police can testify in cases as to their direct observations of a person's behavior in a roadside stop, they could not talk about how the driver fared in a typical drunk driver test. The justices pointed out that there is no accepted test for quantifying someone's level of cannabis intoxication, though there are a number of efforts underway in the private sector to develop one. Click over to the Washington Post for all the details on the case. Another headline in the Post looks at the recent appearance of television personality Dr. Oz on the Fox News show Fox and Friends, where he pushed the idea that medical marijuana could be a useful tool in helping people stop using opioid-based drugs. Dr. Oz engaged with Doofus host Steve Doocy towards the end of his spot, who, to his credit, mentioned that he thought medical marijuana could help people, but that it was restricted due to its Schedule I listing. This is another good one to open up in full, if only to watch the spot yourself. While I'm obviously not a big fan of Fox News in general, it is important that cannabis be seen as the nonpartisan issue that it is, so I'm glad someone over there is treating medical cannabis with the seriousness it deserves. In a sign of things to come, Canadian licensed medical marijuana provider Aurora Cannabis just announced that it had locked in all the permits and required sign-offs for it to start shipping cannabis from Canada to Germany, with an initial shipment of a little over 100 pounds of marijuana flower just having gone out on Monday. The company said that their licensing will allow exports beyond that and that they already have future shipments planned. On the German side, the imported cannabis will be distributed to more than 1,500 pharmacies across the country. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz out on headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, MJ Today Media, the publishers behind this podcast, our weekly show Marijuana Today, and the ever-so-popular MJ Today Media newsfeed. One of the cool things about our audience is that we built it up entirely without a marketing budget. While that's mostly because we haven't really had a marketing budget to spend, it's had the upside of creating a super engaged and industry-heavy audience of listeners who actually need to hear the most important cannabis stories every day. I mean, you either have to be in the industry or just be a huge marijuana nerd to tune into this show every day. And I say that in the nicest way possible as a huge marijuana nerd myself. So what that's manifested into is the best audience in the world of legal marijuana. And I'm talking about you. So, now that I've properly buttered you all up, it's time to ask for a favor. Can you think of one person, just one person in your world who would benefit from hearing our podcasts and getting our email newsletters? Maybe they're a friend or a colleague or someone you met at a conference. Whoever they are, think of that one person and then think of the huge smile on their face as they tune into our podcasts and realize how much better it's going to make them at their job. Because that's what we really want to do here at MJ Today Media, make you better at your job. Knowing what's going on and how all the day's news fits into the context of things at large absolutely give you huge advantages in doing business and trying to change the world. Harness the power of our work by opening up mjtodaymedia.com to find links to all the things we do. That's mjtodaymedia.com. All right, time for the Blitz. Yesterday in Nevada, the Clark County Board of Commissioners decided to kick the can of allowing for public social marijuana use down the road until the city of Denver, Colorado, has had a chance to implement their plans to do the same. In the wake of a finding by the state that allowing businesses to designate cannabis consumption zones for customers would break no state laws, there was some hope that Nevada would open up space for non-residents to use cannabis. But yesterday, the commission, which oversees an area of the state, including the Las Vegas Strip, passed on that chance and said they'd let Denver go first. So very brave. Marijuana Business Daily has a good piece up looking at the changing nature of how licensed Canadian medical marijuana companies are raising money to launch and expand their businesses. In short, companies are choosing more and more to raise capital through different debt mechanisms rather than by issuing stock, as they did last year when they found less willing lenders in the financial system. This is a good one to open up for all the wonky details. Washington, D.C. City Council member David Grosso introduced a proposed bill yesterday that would allow people in the District of Columbia to self-recommend themselves as medical marijuana patients, freeing them from often costly visits to doctors to do the same. We'll report back on this one if it manages to make any progress. Swinging back up north to Canada and back to the topic of driving while high, we have a story in Leafly about the reactionary response the province of Ontario is taking to drivers operating under the influence of cannabis. On Monday, Ontario Premier Kathleen Wynne announced a series of harsh new penalties for drivers busted driving while high, even as I've reported so often, there is no scientifically viable way to test that proposition, and not really even a clear case that driving under the influence of marijuana is all that dangerous, statistically speaking. 2 ballot measures will go up before voters in the city of Detroit in November, asking them to modify their city's cannabis laws in ways that would expand the industry. One measure would enroll the city into the state's medical marijuana regulatory system, while the other would relax zoning laws that restrict where dispensaries can locate. Ohio starts accepting applications in November to become one of 60 licensed dispensaries set to deploy across the state next year. The process is being handled by the State Board of Pharmacy and requires applicants to fill out a 9-page application and submit various plans for how they would run their business and take care of patients. Click over to New Cannabis Ventures for links to the application page and to see an example application posted by state officials. And finally for today, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said that he has no plans to ask U.S. officials to relax their policy on screening cross-border travelers for their history of cannabis use. Even as states across the U.S. as well as the entire nation of Canada move towards relaxing their marijuana laws, things are still strictly prohibitionary on the border, where guards can bar travelers for life from entering the U.S. if they admit to having used cannabis in the past, with the kicker being that they can also ban you for life if they somehow find out that you lied to them. When asked about the possibility of intervening himself, Prime Minister Trudeau said, quote, "Canadians appreciate that we don't let other countries or other leaders dictate who or how we let people into our country. So I'm not going to tell Americans how to make decisions about who they let into their country either." Unquote. No, but maybe you could ask. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily and visit our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, MJ Today Media, and to all of our awesome patron listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the patron listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Shay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in and starting your day with marijuana today.
One take, Shay. One take.